In episode number 418 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover Jim Lee's recent comments about the comic book industry.
We also have our thoughts on the announced Punchline one-shot.
Our comic book review this week, as voted on by you, is Sonic the Hedgehog number 30.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am Team Rocket Grunt Daniel this week.
And I am Emperor Kelli.
I got a little bit of a demotion.
You did.
Not too sure what happened.
You weren't Team Rocketing enough.
I wasn't admin material,
you didn't
unfortunately.
You didn't pop that collar the right way, and they were like, oh, nope, now you're a grunt.
I wore it backwards. It's like, look, I didn't grow up with the nicest clothes, so I don't really know how this stuff is supposed to be worn anyway.
You just weren't hipster enough to be a Team Rocket admin.
For those of you new to the show, the way we format it is first we go through some news. We head into our Patreon shoutouts of the week, which are our thank yous for those of you who make today's show possible. Then we head into our comic book highlight and end it with the Broquette block, which is what Palpa Kelly and I have been doing this week.
But kicking it off with some DC news on the comic side, DC publisher Jim Lee confirmed that monthly comic books are still at the forefront for DC in spite of the shakeups and layoffs.
There was a lot of speculation about what this meant for DC Comics moving forward. The layoffs that we covered last week from what seemed to be AT&T and Warner Brothers down into the publisher. Quote from Lee, who told The Hollywood Reporter, 100%. It's still the cornerstone of everything that we do. The need for storytelling, updating the mythology is vital to what we do. End quote.
He did go on to clarify about the number of books in DC's future, saying, quote, that said, we will be reducing the size of the slate, but it's about looking at everything and looking at the bottom 20%, 25% of the line that wasn't breaking even or was losing money. It's about more punch for the pound, so to speak, and increasing the margins of the books that we are doing. It was about aligning the books to the franchise brand content we've developed and making sure that every book we put out for a reason, end quote.
I think they usually do stuff like that when they're about to switch from one boss to another, when they're about to relaunch, when there are new number ones. So this was to be expected, and I honestly thought we were going to get that sooner with the now abandoned 5G plans that DC had. So this is kind of like a delayed confirmation of all of those things happening. But on their focus for digital first, and this is where it was all confirmed for me what I had feared several months back. He said, quote, we're using that as a model as we go out and do more digital content. We'll take the most successful books and repackage it as physical books. I think there is definitely business to be had in physical periodicals, but that said, I think there's greater upside in digital because we can go to a more global audience and the barrier to entry, especially in this pandemic, is lower, end quote.
I think he's being told to say that. I don't think Jim Lee at all wants digital books.
Especially someone who grew up in the industry of helping to found Image Comics. He worked for Marvel and now he's a bigwig at DC. But to me, that's them saying, and it's exactly what we saw in the comic books, of splitting the panels into threes with the pages, so the physical books are no longer the priority at DC. And this is more or less what also AT&T, Warner Brothers, when AT&T bought up this company, they saw exactly where they were losing money on or breaking even, as he was saying, and consolidating everything so that they tightened up all of the companies. I don't know if you remember, yeah, I'm sure you do. Like a year ago, we were talking about the difference between Disney and Warner Brothers and how Warner Brothers is different divisions, because there was that question of, they asked the DO at the conference for retailers, why don't you have, and at the time Green Arrow and The Flash and the CW were massive, why don't you have them promote the comic books to help and let other readers know, hey, this is what our show is inspired by? and that'll help you sell more comics. And that's when Dan DiDio said, it's, believe us, that's something we've discussed, but it's not easy to do. You have to go through different contracts. You have to go through, even though it's Warner Brothers, a different branch of the company, make separate contracts with them. There's got to be money to be made between the different departments. And it's not as easy as, hey, can you throw this up on your Instagram? There's a whole bunch of approvals that need to take place. And AT&T, from what I'm seeing and what people have said of the other companies they've purchased, is they like to consolidate everything, make it all one machine, kind of like how Disney does it now, which to me, it's still telling me that we have two Marvel Comicses. There's going to be benefits and there's going to be some negatives as well. Obviously, right now with the comic books, it's a digital comic first and then they print it into physical. And it is what it is. I'm grateful we're still getting physical books, and that's fine. And so far, he did go on to say that they're not just going to be a trade paperback or graphic novel only company. He also confirmed that they're not going to just give their stories over to a different publisher so that they publish it, but they are doing that with their DC Direct line. The stuff that we collect, like the black and whites, all of those statues, they're ending all of those, and they're instead going to just license out the characters to companies that already do statues and toys as it is.
There could be some, positives and drawbacks to that too, though. What kind of different things would you get from companies where that's their sole business, right? Potentially that could be good. But the one thing he said within here that did really concern me is they release digital first, they see which ones do the best, and then they release the comics. For me, you're missing an entire market, right? Because you have all the people who only buy physical, who maybe one particular book would be more popular with that crowd than for the people who are reading it digitally. And so now you're losing out on a lot of money potentially. And I get that they're trying to balance it, right? What's the lesser of two evils for them as a company and to make that money. But yeah, there's probably books that are going to do well digitally that you and I are just not going to want, and vice versa.
Yeah, and that is one negative to it. One positive, and this is something that I discussed with the owner of the comic shop that I work for, is that if they want to test out books on the digital market, and if it flops there, better for it to flop digitally than for it to flop physically, where true. It's on us more or less. So that is one positive out of this, where it's like, if it does well there, then it'll probably do well in the shop.
Yeah, another positive you could look at is see, maybe how many more did this particular book sell digitally than another book sold digitally. Okay, now to bump it up by that percentage versus if you go to order it. I get it, pros and cons to both. It's going to be about you as a comic shop, owner or manager or whatever, trying to really market and benefit from those pros when there are a decent number of negatives as well.
Yeah, it's a huge balancing act for me, especially. And I've now transitioned in my personal marketing for the store to uphold the independent market and the Marvel books more than the DC ones, because I simply have more tools in helping to sell and promote the books for other publishers that are not DC right now. I cannot do reorders for DC Comics anymore without losing money. It's unfortunate, but it's like, all right, I will push the pre-orders for DC books and let them know, hey, Rorschach is coming. Let us know as soon as possible, and stress the urgency, because it is there of, if you want this DC book, make sure to add it to your sub. Whereas there's a little bit more wiggle room, and we have more accurate data now with the independent publishers and with Marvel, because their final order cutoff dates give us 3 to 4 more days of data, as opposed to DC, which only gives us 1 day of data. We record this on Wednesdays or Thursdays typically. Books come out on Wednesdays. DC FOCs are due on Thursday nights. So I have maybe 2 days, I guess, of data from DC sales. So I'm missing out on the Friday, people that get paid on Fridays, that they come in and they pick up books off the shelf. I'm missing out on all that data each week, and it's unfortunate. But it's just another drawback from the comic retailer. And that's why I'm saying, all right, well, if the comic retailers are not their priority, then how am I supposed to be incentivized, aside from making sure that as many people get the books they want as possible? But otherwise, how am I incentivized to make sure that they succeed? Aside from the fact that I am a DC shill, we are DC belugas, and I love them and I love these characters, but I have, a business to manage as well. And I have to do what's best. And I've been doing that for years you have to do what's best for your business. You got to put aside your personal tastes and not order up on a book because you like the character, and instead order the shit that is going to move and sell. I have no problem doing that. That's the whole point of serving a comic community.
Not that we wanted this to happen, but I think this entire year has been a great testament to how everyone is able to adapt and grow and do what they need to do to continue to move forward and be successful. And this will be the same kind of, situation with you and all comic retailers, is learning how to navigate this. And hopefully DC listens and continues to test and adjust as they go through this to get to a place that's more comfortable for everyone.
As I've been saying, a year from now is when we'll see all of these changes in place. AT&T and all of these departments, there's still so many moving parts. There's so many what ifs, and who knows how they're handling a lot of this. I don't even know if maybe they'll have one distributor next year. I have no idea how this is all going to go down, but in a year we'll have a better kind of idea of our footing in this.
Maybe Steve Jeppy will make them an offer they can't refuse.
Steve Jeppy is the hero we always knew we needed. Always
didn't
knew
deserve.
We needed, but didn't deserve. No. Love Mr. Jeppy. Good people there.
Good mobsters.
Gotham mobsters.
Is he the head of Team Rocket? Is that what it is?
He owns Team Rocket. He owns, what's his name? Giovanni. Giovanni's his bitch.
I miss Giovanni. I'm sad. I'm glad we got to see him in that other game, in that whatever special scene with Celebi or whatever.
I still like the Pokemon Origins anime where he's like, oh, this boy, he awakened something within me.
Is that where he went? He went to jail?
I guess so. It was a weird voice performance when I was watching that. I get that it's awakening his inner trainer from when he was a child is what they're trying to do, but that's not the way he played it. And that's not the way I read it when I was watching it.
And that guy knew that's not the way he was playing it.
Yeah, when we watched it for the first time, you're like, that's weird.
I don't even remember, so I'm glad that you do.
Per usual, we do put out these stories and quotes a little bit ahead of time. That way we can get some reactions from the Brokehead Corps to get them involved a little bit more, as much as we can on the show, because they are a huge part of the weekly podcast. And we've got the first one here from what used to be at Brian Shop 1. He has since changed his name to at Mogo Broquettes.
So cool.
Makes it official right there. So I know between Bobby and them, but he's the OG Mogo, and now he's the established Mogo.
So he said, quote, "If books aren't selling, then they need to go. This happens all the time, unfortunately. It's just the business. Sounds to me like for financial reasons, they're cutting anything they can to stay afloat, which really sucks. Most of the time, this plan doesn't work. I will never be digital," end quote.
Same here. As I've said before, if they end up going all digital, I would probably end up maybe going to trade paperbacks if they end up releasing trades. And even then, it would be physical only. I would not be able to do digital trades or digital graphic novels. I've tried it. It's simply not for me. I don't get that same experience. And honestly, I do enjoy a lot of the collectability behind it. I know you're okay with digital comics, at least the ones that are formatted for phones, not the ones that are like what we're seeing now.
Yeah, so this is two very different things. I read my books digitally, and I read...
Like novels, right?
Yeah, novels. I read my romance novels. I read those digitally, and I read my Korean comics, so webtoons is what the app is called. But those things, one, I think books are easier to put digitally, right? Because it's the same format for every single thing. And then webtoons are formatted specifically to be read digitally. So everything's up and down instead of side by side. So you just scroll up and down, obviously, right? But, the physical comic books, DC Comics, and all that kind of stuff, traditional comic books are not meant to be formatted that way. And so you're having to make it different. I mean, just like you've seen, right? And shove it into the phone, and then it just doesn't scroll as easily. And a lot of times, one of the best things about comics is being able to look at the entire page. So no, traditional comics I cannot read digitally. I've tried it once or twice, and granted, it was a while ago, but it was just not very user-friendly. And like you said, really took you out of the experience. So I think that's something for them to really consider is, yes, there are a lot of media that's doing very well digitally, but they are kind of made to be digital, whereas this is not.
So you would say if they were to go to an all-digital market, they would probably have to format all the panels to either be all horizontal or all vertical at that point.
They would have to be all vertical. I don't think you could do it all horizontal because, unless you turn your phone sideways, but a lot of people that's not comfortable. You would have to do it all vertical, and then it still has a very different feel. But if you're telling somebody, okay, instead of shoving them in these little phone-shaped blocks sideways, make it vertical, you're able to do a little bit more with that. And I think artists could work around that more easily, but then you're not going to be able to translate it into a paper copy. So it's just, you'd have to go all or the other to really get the full experience.
And you'd kind of lose the effect of splash pages, the artwork when they do like the one page, even those are like half splash pages. Those are, they're good for impact when you're reading the story as well. So
you could still potentially do some splash pages, but you're not going to get all the detail, and it would just be very different.
But overall, I am with Brian. I think I would probably dive deeper into indie comics.
I thought you were going to say I'll probably die first. I'm like, that got dark real fast. I'll die before I ever read your digital comics.
But another comment here is from @CubanSlim. Bobby, who is effectively, we got to come up with a title, maybe something that he can help out, like the Brokehead General. Like, there's definitely like a ranking of like old school Brokeheads in the Brokehead Corps for sure.
I'll think about it.
And Bobby @CubanSlim says, quote, when DC pivots further into digital first releases for majority of its books catalog, what impact, if any, will this have on a local comic book shop? The digital platform introduction years back, speculation was that it would really hurt, and it didn't. How about now? End quote. So the thing that is hurting me the most as far as sales at the comic shop is the fact that I cannot do any reorders for books that are gone. And so far, I don't have any tools to reorder trade paperbacks either. And that's a huge negative, because I just sold out, even though I ordered extras, of the Green Lantern Earth 1 hardcover volume 2. And I sold out of the extras. And it looks like other comic shops as well in the company had sold out because they were requesting the same hardcover. And it's like, that's a book that I can reorder, resell whenever they do Batman 3 Jokers. Doomsday Clock is about to release also. When I sell out of that, it's like, how do I go about reordering those? And yes, I know there's Penguin Press that's doing that and handling that, but so far I don't have those tools to reorder. I just get my initial orders and that is it. So is that going to be on me now to make sure that I promote trade paperbacks harder when it comes to pre-orders, or am I eventually going to have some kind of reordering tool? So that's affected me in a negative way, not non-reorders, but as far as new releases, they're still doing really well. They're a really strong column, but the unfortunate thing is once I'm out of a book, I have to pray that there's a second printing, and even then, collectors don't want the second or third printings. Readers do, and I always lean heavier on readers than I do collectors, because readers are there for your long-time sales. Whereas collectors or speculators, there's a difference there between a collector and a speculator. Speculators are just there for the hot book that week, and then you don't see them again until the next hot book comes out. So I'm losing out on a little bit there, but so far it hasn't been this massive negative impact of most readers. Honestly, they don't notice that the books are formatted differently right now. And I know you didn't notice it. I did, but no reader has told me, these panels aren't the same anymore. In fact, if you've been reading Marvel books, which I haven't, all the Marvel books have had this format that DC has now for I don't know how long, because I haven't read Marvel. So if you're reading both, this is probably no different to you. You're probably used to it from reading the Marvel books.
I think the majority of the difficulty that you see is going to be right now. It's going to be in this first 6 months to a year that all these changes are happening, that things are still sorting out, and you either are going to get used to it or they're going to test and adjust and things will get easier. But for the most part, I think, when you're talking about really difficult, really negative things for comic shops, I think you're in the middle of it right now.
Moving forward with a new announcement on what is a mainly, I think, speculator-driven character on this popularity at least. But DC has announced a one-shot special titled Punchline, as written by James Tynion IV and Sam Johns, with art from Mirka Andolfo. I love Mirka. We
do have a quote here from Pal Kelli who says, "Who cares about this character?"
Until the story justifies the popularity of the character, I'm on the same boat, because so far, and we haven't read the latest Batman, I don't know. But
I read enough. I read enough of her.
You're like, I'm good.
I'm fine.
And there's some reflective sentiment on that too with the Brokehead Corps, which we'll get to. But a quote here from James Tynion IV.
Quote, "Back when I first introduced Punchline, I falsely said many times," he didn't say that, I said many times that this wasn't going to be a flash in the pan character, that I had big plans for her moving forward that would drive big story next year and beyond. Joker War is over, but Punchline's plans have only just begun. I'm thrilled to be telling this frightening story that expands her past and sets up her future with the amazing Sam Johns and the incredible Mirka Andolfo. This is only the beginning, end quote.
This one-shot is set to release on November 11th, 2020, so it'll be in the next DC Connect catalog. I hope that this is Punchline's version of Batman Adventures Mad Love. If it's that great and it sets up this amazing origin or backstory to her, awesome. Then I want more characters. I want more great characters. But if it doesn't, then that's kind of going to be it for the character until another creator comes in and reinvents her, just like Paul Dini, Bruce Timm, and Alan Burnett did with Mr. Freeze.
Oh, Mr. Freeze. Such a good job. I'm still not sold. I don't think this is going to be anything great. I think they're really going to try. But Harley was just so perfect in the time that she was released and the way that she was set up. And, you know, she had the animated series so that we could really fall in love with her, with Arlene Sorkin's voice and all these things that just made her just part of our heart. And Punchline doesn't have that. And Punchline will never have that from me.
Most casual readers will come in and say, I heard Joker has a new girlfriend or something.
Get out.
And I said, yeah, she's in the Batman series, but I honestly can't tell them much more than that, other than like, yeah, she's the new girlfriend, and she's like an evil Harley Quinn, whereas Harley is, I would put her more on the good side at this point, on the good guys, because she does interact and team up with Poison Ivy, who is more of an anti-hero than a villain, I would say.
But I feel like, I'm sorry, I can't get into Punchline again. Please read the Brocats. I'm done.
So John on Twitter at John72 his thoughts, the Brocats, he said, quote, she's okay, but she's no Harley Quinn, end quote.
Nobody is Harley Quinn.
And I know John is a massive Harley Quinn fan. He has original artwork by Bruce Timm. He has all kinds of collectibles of Harley statues, toys, the various comics. He just put up on his YouTube channel, which went up on our Discord, his Harley Quinn collection on there, including Batman Adventures first appearance, CGC graded. So John, from another Harley Quinn fan, and I think all Harley fans are going, nah, whatever. It's not Harley.
They're going, who cares?
And I know she's not supposed to be Harley, but she's not that interesting yet to me. She's not even like, all right, well, Punchline's not Harley, but she's cool or she's interesting. Still not getting it. Still not seeing it.
Our next quote comes from @MogoBrocat, who said, quote, not thrilled with her, but I will definitely pick it up. One of my favorite writers, end quote.
I will say, if you're enjoying Batman from James Tynion right now with Joker War, or if you like the Detective Comics from Rebirth, which I really liked, and the New 52, then James Tynion is still writing this. I'm glad he is, because he is one of the co-creators of the character of Punchline, so it should be James that is writing it. I love Mirka Andolfo's artwork. We're reading Mirka's, we were reading Unsacred, but now we're reading Mercy from Image Comics, I believe, which was her it was a Italian comic book, and then they published it here in the US. So awesome. Cannot wait to at least enjoy the artwork. We'll know the artwork is going to be great, and I hope this storyline serves that too.
It won't. She's lame. Meh.
Because it was a lighter news week, we've got DC fandom right around the corner, and either next week or we'll do an emergency pod. We haven't quite decided yet, but there's going to be an extra sized episode next week because of DC fandom.
If we do an emergency one, I wanted to have like the boop, 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 boop. This is an emergency podcast from The Reasons I'm Broke.
Yeah, we'll see if that ends up happening.
Let you know all about DC fandom.
But I reached out on Discord for more news stories or more questions from the Brocat Core just to kind of beef up this week's episode. And I sifted through all of it and found some really good takes from the Brocat Core. And they actually had news stories that I normally don't come across based on the websites that I get these from. So stuff outside of mainly comics and superhero stuff. But the first one comes from @SpoonSandwich, and this is a whole nother industry and a lot of movement on this week. And he had a question on films releasing digitally.
He asked, quote, should these companies hold out for normal distribution to resume or take the digital money now so they can keep operating, end quote.
Cuban Slim had a good follow-up to Spoon and said, quote, that's a good question. How does all of this affect the results reported in factual info site banks like Box Office Mojo, etc.? Is there an asterisk? How will this work going forward? I think to answer Bobby's question, there's going to just have to be a shift in this is now going to be digital sales. Like this is how many digital copies were rented or sold. and they'll add that into the figure. And I think over time, as more companies do this, that'll become the new standard.
I definitely agree with that. I think even before we went into this COVID and changes and closing theaters and all that kind of stuff, there were all those talks, there were all those plans to also have something where you could rent it digitally so you didn't have to go to the movie theater, right? And so we were headed in this direction anyway. For me personally, yeah, I think if the movie's ready to go ahead and release it digitally. You were able to see movies that you wouldn't have been able to see for a long time. So you watched the Shia LaBeouf. No, it's not the Shia LaBeouf movie.
Tax Collector.
So Tax Collector, right? And yeah, we probably would have gone to see it in theaters, but if they had waited to release it, now you're waiting months and months and months and months to be able to see it when it's something that you were really excited for. So for me, I say, yeah, if it's ready, release it digitally. Who knows when the world is going to be back to normal? Realistically, I think we're still looking at mid-summer next year before we're really back to a place where things are operating as they were before. And if you can evolve and change and continue pushing forward and, making money so that when things get back to normal, you're just able to roll right back into it instead of saying, well, now we have no money because we didn't do anything for that time.
There's definitely a window right now of movies that companies have to decide, all right, we had these planned for a theatrical release, but let's go ahead and release them. I think for the next couple of months, the companies should be releasing those digitally and making money as they can, because if they end up waiting another year or whenever more movie theaters are actually able to open and people are willing to go out and watch a movie, then they're going to potentially lose more money than if they do it digitally. So I think it should, if anything, be a simultaneous release. If some of the independent retailers, like we have a local theater that did end up showing The Tax Collector after release digitally. So if they're able to do it on both, then do it on both as often as possible, because that just widens your margin and widens your audience in that way for people that don't want to see digitally, want to support it by going into the theaters, or people that I would even say that anyone that's in the retirement age, they probably still go to the theater and see what is playing, and didn't just watch it just to have something to do. So you can get a lot of money in that end. So that's kind of where I sit.
Yeah, releasing it digitally also, I think you potentially have the opportunity to have more people view your movie, right? Because you have people who don't like to go to the theaters or say, okay, well, I'll wait until this releases on video, right? By the time I live far away from the theater, by the time I drive and take all that time to go and X, Y, and Z, and I have to, ignore other responsibilities to go and do this, right? And it's easy just to rent it at home and watch it before you go to bed. And a lot of times you're going to spend the same amount of money, even if it's like a $30 rental that you would if you went into the theater. So you're still going to have people like us that when everything is normal and have the opportunity to go, we will make the time to go and enjoy that full experience. But you have plenty of people who are going to rent it when it first releases digitally because they've been doing that anyway. They've just been waiting till it's, long after it's out of theaters.
You and I are definitely more different when it comes to our movie watching habits. I think by default, we like going to the theaters. We like making it an experience and making a day out of it. So when that day happens of it's releasing back theatrically and digitally, let's say, because that seems to be the trend right now of digital and theaters today, or digitally in 2 weeks, I think we're still going to go to the theaters and watch it. But until then, yeah, we're happy to rent it. I'm not going to rent it for $30 or Disney Plus it like Mulan is for $30. I'm instead going to, if they give me the route of The Tax Collector where they say you can rent it for this much or you can own it for 15, I'm going to own it for the 15, not rent it for 30. That just doesn't make any financial sense to me. Or if it's, you can rent it for 30 and that's your only option, or I'm going to wait a month and then rent it for $4 or own it for 15, I'm going to choose to wait. And I say that, but maybe during DC Fandom, they say, oh, and by the way, Wonder Woman 1984, it's available right now on your favorite streaming service to purchase or rent. And if they do, $30 though, even still, I don't know if I would do it. I think I would still wait to rent it or own it. It's just, that's maybe, and I get that movie tickets are that much, but I'm at home in a television screen that's nowhere near the size of going into the theater.
Yeah, but you want to look at other people, families of 4, right, who go to the theater because that's the earliest they're going to get to see that movie, not necessarily because it's an experience.
Yeah, but I'm only speaking for myself.
Oh, right. I still think there's a huge market there, and I'm gonna be for real. If they tell me that Wonder Woman 84 is for rent for $30, I'm gonna rent it for $30, right? I will watch it. Because while I do like the theater experience, I also like getting to watch movies with you, and I feel that we can also make it an experience at home. Not quite the same, but we can pop popcorn and I can fall asleep and know
and waste $30.
And waste $30. It's great. But back to Bobby's point, or Bobby's was it Bobby's comment?
Spoon was the first one.
I'm sorry. Anyway, the comment about what are you going to do for box office numbers, right? I definitely think it's all going to be lumped in together now, and then you're just going to have two different sets of numbers that are added together.
Another question here from @CubanSlim, and this has to do on the Disney side for any of the MCU sheep out there. Thoughts on Jared Leto entering Tron 3?
I didn't even know there was a Tron 3, but Disney's now actively working on it with star and producer Jared Leto.
So all of the Disney heads that were like, fuck Jared Leto because of the Suicide Squad and Joker.
So great.
Fuck Jared Leto because of Morbius, and that's a Sony movie, not a Disney one.
He's so amazing now.
Now they're like, he's a really good actor. This is a great choice.
Best actor
I can't wait for Tron 3. And it's like, yeah, fuck you guys. We've been saying he's a good fucking actor, and I'll still say that he's a great actor. Leto said on Instagram, quote, I'm struck with such gratitude for the opportunity to bring this movie to life, especially as both the original video game and the film affected me so deeply as a young child. The fact that I get to be a part of this new chapter is mind-blowing. I am so very excited and proud to confirm that yes, I will be starring in Tron. We will work as hard as we possibly can to create something that I hope you all will love. We have some very special ideas in store for you all, end quote.
No story details have been confirmed on the film yet. We enjoy the Tron franchise. I think that we liked at least the second one.
Legacy, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm for it. I like Jared Leto.
I am surprised that they're moving forward with Tron 3 because of how Tron Legacy performed. Mm-hmm. The show was amazing, too. I really liked it. Apparently, it's up on Disney+, but it's that animated show.
I really liked that show.
Very, very interesting animation, and the story was solid. So if you are one of the Disney+ people, definitely check out that. I don't know what it was called, like Next Evolution or something, but Tron, it's on there. And so is Legacy and the original one. We don't know yet if Leto is, yes, he says he's starring in it, but is he going to be a villain? Is he going to be the main character? We're not sure. And I'm shocked again that we're getting Tron 3, but I will be watching Tron 3 in whatever capacity it releases. And this is a huge get for that movie. Jared Leto is a huge draw right now.
Definitely. I see him as the villain. I think he's going to be the villain in that movie.
Kind of like in Blade Runner?
Yeah. He was a villain in Blade. I didn't see Blade. Did I see Blade Runner?
2049?
Yeah, I probably did. I probably didn't know it was Jared Leto.
He had like the blind, it was where there was like birth where these people were born. I think they were.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember now. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready to see what they do with it. It'll probably be humorous and a lot of laughs.
It better have another soundtrack by Daft Punk, because that shit was amazing. Another cameo by it. I'm going to be honest with you. I like Tron Legacy more for the aesthetics, the special effects, the couple of sets they had, and the soundtrack more than for the story itself. And I don't know. I just like literally watching the film rather than I'm not invested in it for the story.
We'll have to see it again. It's been I think I only ever saw it once. It's been a really long time.
Cuban Slim has one quote for the Palpa. How often do folks order a straight virgin black coffee, nothing added, versus a combo drink with a million additives, subtractions, modifications, and substitutes? And the secondary question to this is, most difficult drink to make due to request, end quote.
Oh, man. People order black coffee a lot.
Nice. Like I didn't expect that.
Really? No. It's very, very frequent. You know, especially during the morning, our busiest 2 hours, you're probably looking at every third or fourth car orders just a black coffee, whether that's a hot coffee, an iced coffee, a cold brew, something. And I think, you know, sometimes they take it and put their own creamer in it or whatever, because that's easiest, because they'll say like, oh, black coffee with room. But yeah, it does happen pretty frequently. The most difficult drink to make due to request, I will say, as long as they're very upfront with what they want, it's not difficult to modify it, right? Maybe it takes a little more time because you have to add this and that. But what makes it very difficult is, so any place that you go, the second you start ordering something, there's 4 other people who can hear you who are starting your drinks. So if you notice, when I order things, I usually say the modification before I say what the drink is, because I know that the second I start to order a drink, somebody's pulling shots. So if I want my shots done differently, I'll say that first before I say that I want 4 shots or whatever. What makes it difficult is if you go through your entire drink, right? Sometimes the drink is done before you even finish ordering, and then you go, oh, wait, but can I have almond milk?
Right.
Oh, wait, but can you do this? Oh, wait, and I don't mind, right? Maybe you forgot. And I want to make sure that my customers have what they need, but I'm now dumping out an entire drink that I've already made, or maybe I've already pulled 4 regular shots and you wanted blonde shots, and I have to wait for the machine to stop pulling before I can pull the correct shots. And those kind of things can get frustrating.
So you would say first, when you order your drink, if you're going to modify it at all, talk about the modifications, like the different milk or the different shots, before you say, hey, I want the caramel whatever frizzle drink, and then start making the modifications.
Right. So let's say you want like a caramel macchiato with, I don't know, blonde shots, right? You would say, hey, can I get a whatever size blonde caramel macchiato? Because now I'm pulling the correct shots immediately, whereas if you just say the macchiato, I'm pulling regular shots.
And Spoon did say, quote, most emotionally painful drink people order, and Pandanime immediately chimed in with, quote, I still remember working at McDonald's and someone ordered coffee and asked for so many pumps of cream. It was literally just cream with a splash of coffee, end quote. I bet you that happens all the time.
That does happen quite frequently. One of the drinks that comes through several times a week is a French vanilla iced coffee. And so how you make French vanilla is you put vanilla and hazelnut together, and then iced coffee comes with like a simple syrup anyway. So if you get a large size, you're looking at 7 pumps of each syrup. And so then you'll ask, okay, well, that's going to come with 7 pumps of each syrup. Do you want to reduce that? No, it's fine. So it's 21 pumps of sugar with extra cream. And then, yeah, it's just like the tiniest amount of coffee in there. Another one that kills me every time is when they get their drinks made with heavy cream. So, you know, if you get a latte with heavy cream, it's 2 shots of espresso and 14 ounces of heavy cream, or
here's a glass of milk.
right, but like heavy cream is just even worse. Or when they do it with all half and half, and my stomach just revolts. And part of that is because now in my advanced age, dairy doesn't sit very well with me anyway, but it's a big keto thing. So if, you know, they'll get sugar-free syrup and heavy cream, and that's a keto drink, and because you're having all that high fat. But just when I see that, TikTok released a bunch of drinks with heavy cream too, and people are getting heavy cream in their drinks all the time, like teas made with heavy cream instead of water, or, you know, like different juices made with heavy cream instead of water. And it's just, it's so much. It's so much. And I make it, and my stomach just revolts the entire time. But listen, everybody likes their coffee a certain way. They like what they like, and I get that. And whether it's for me or not for me, I'm happy that they're still spending money and able to come to my shop and enjoy what they get, even if I think they're insane. And sometimes I'll save a little bit and try it just so I can be like, I do. That
does sound emotionally and physically painful. Part of me was thinking maybe I should have moved these couple questions to the BroCat block, but it was the last bit of it there. Huge thanks again for sending those news stories over to us. I know that definitely helps out with this pre-DC Fandom episode. But let's head into our Patreon shoutouts of the week.
This week, we have 4 shout-outs. The first one goes out to Julian W. on Twitter at Kage023 and at Lazy Gaming Guys.
Julian has been streaming Final Fantasy XIV online on the Lazy Gaming Guys YouTube channel. He also streamed the new Soul Calibur game last night, which was a lot of fun to watch. And then Bobby let me know that there's a nightclub in there called The Beehive. And he showed me, he's like, I was watching Bobby stream, and he's like, look, check out this place. This is where Julian hangs out. And it's like a bunch of buff men, like pole dancing and like little underwear. And he's like, go ahead, ask him. And I asked him on Discord, and it was like a little joke, but he's like, no, yeah, I go there all the time. And I'm like, what is the point of this?
Beehive? Because they have stingers.
Okay. Just got it. I don't like it, though. I don't like wasps. I don't like bees. I wouldn't be there in any way, shape, or form. Next shout out this week goes out to Christian on Instagram at ChristianLikeTheReligion131.
Christian sent a reminder to be sure to take your vitamins, especially if you're looking to build muscle as he is.
He's got all of the powders, all of the different vitamins you can take. I never took it to that level, but I think when I was doing the most amount of body building, it was during my senior year of high school. And then after that, I didn't get into a regular program once I graduated. But did you ever get into any of the powders or the vitamins?
I didn't. I did look into, like, especially when I was running a lot, looking into what you should eat post-run to really help build that muscle and help recover. And I was really good about that for a while, even when, I was working out from home for that month that I did it, that I need to get back into. There's a lot of benefits to it. Like, yeah, it takes some time to research that stuff and really find out what works for you. But that's how you're going to get the most success, is really looking into, okay, what does my body need as I'm pushing it to this point to help it get better?
Next shout out goes out to Renee on Twitter at Yugi's Pokemon.
Renee has also been streaming Final Fantasy XIV online, but on his Twitch channel.
I think Julian and Renee should, I don't know if they're in the same server or whatever, but maybe they should find out and stream together on each of their channels. That'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be really cool. And wrapping up our Apology Tour month, we have Manu on Twitter at ManUnited0710.
As you called it, the month of Manu.
Yes.
He helped with episode 16 of the Snyder Cut Roundtables along with Haruko Hitomi, and I had the privilege and honor of hosting for the second time for the Release the Snyder Cut YouTube channel. And thankfully, Manu and Haruko both agreed to be on. I know Manu mentioned on the stream that he was glad that he was not hosting this time. So I'm sure that's a lot of just, it's easier to, instead of worrying about keeping the conversation going or what topic are we going to hit up next, just answering the questions. And he and Haruko are natural guests. They made hosting so easy. And Manu has always, for several years now, I can't recall exactly the year where we started to communicate and connect. I think it was via Twitter, but he's been a big pillar of support for myself, especially throughout, some of the more personal side of what I've been going through. And then we've been watching out for each other as well, because I know he goes through his ups and downs too. So it was just neat to be able to talk about the Snyder Cut Roundtables. I know he's hosted in the past for that YouTube channel too. And so far, according to one of the people that runs the Snyder Cut account, that this YouTube channel video has been one of their highest performing ones yet. And I hope that it continues like that for each of their videos, because as more hosts do it, as more guests do it, it'll, I think, hit a wider range of people, and hopefully that gets the channel more subs. But we did post up a link on our Patreon channel. We put it up as a public post. So if you head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke, you'll see the Snyder Cut Roundtable link there. Make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel. Make sure to follow Manu as well. And if you would like your shout out for as little as $1 a month, you too can be thanked every single month on the podcast.
So thank you so much, Manu, Renee, Christian, and Julian W. for your help with Patreon, the things that you help make possible for this show, like our brand new app.
The app is available on both iOS devices and Android devices. If you search The Reasons I'm Broke on the store, you will find it right there. It is another dedicated podcatcher for just the show, but we put up dedicated content like the wallpaper each episode that we've been putting up that fits your phone. But more than anything, it is a good way for a new audience to discover the show, and that was all possible thanks to our Patreon backers.
And now we can move into our comic book highlight of the week, the comic book chosen by you, Sonic the Hedgehog number 30.
This was written by Ian Flynn with art by Priscilla Tramontano and colors by Heather Breckel.
This is wrapping up the Zombots.
The metal virus.
The metal virus that was going on. I was still lost and confused, but maybe you can offer some more insight into this book.
It is a come down level type of story, although it does kind of leave you with the start of this next arc. I don't know if Ian Flynn is tackling that issue. I know that one of the artists was taking over the writing and art duties on Sonic the Hedgehog as he goes on to do Sonic Bad Guys, which releases in a couple of weeks. Can't wait for that issue too. but this is the one in which they were able to eradicate the metal virus from their universe, but it took Super Sonic and Super Silver, whatever they end up calling him. Only Silver made it back, and Sonic was gone for all of a couple, 20 pages or so, but it was just kind of neat to see that fallout of Sonic is gone, and I think that's the one thing I would have maybe enjoyed a little bit more if we got a little bit more of a world without Sonic, but it is called Sonic the Hedgehog. You got to have Sonic in there. If, kids and teens and anyone else reading this, they're here for Sonic, and I think this issue really highlighted all of the secondary and minor characters even as they react to this world without Sonic, without the metal virus. Knuckles has some cool moments in here, which I really appreciated. That's my favorite character from the Sonic universe. What were your thoughts on this one?
It's not for me, right? I'm not very invested in what's going on in this book. We talked about it, like the issue with that story with Big in it, Big the cat, and how he was trying to find his frog, and then his frog was infected. Like, if the whole issue was just how the frog saves everybody, then I'd be very much about it. But, as we continue with this book, there's a lot of characters that I don't know. Like, maybe I've seen them once or twice, but I'm still just like, don't know who you are, aren't really invested. Shadow showed up at one point, and I was like, yeah, Shadow. That was the only one I knew.
He fights Metal Sonic.
Yeah.
And I wanted them, I got the thing, I was like, can you, because they're holding hands at one point, I'm like, now kiss. Can we get that romance?
Now be in love. So, yeah, I mean, again, I haven't been reading up to this point. I will say it's difficult when you're skipping one to the next to really continue and follow the story. I'm happy everybody's better. I did like the part with Knuckles where he's like, Sonic will be back any minute now.
Right.
He knows the way to come back.
Jesus, no. Not that Knuckles.
So, yeah, that was my thoughts on it.
There was a romance between Rouge the Bat, though, and Knuckles.
Yeah?
When she was on the gem, and he was like, all right, you don't remember that part of it?
No, I don't.
Did you read this issue?
I did. I read most of it.
All right. Well, that says it right there. One book you have to read each week, as voted on by the Brocat Core. Goodness. All right. Well, you missed out on the romance portion of it, aside from Shadow and Metal. But I still think it is an awesome series. If you're into Sonic, there's a Mega Man one coming out, but it is not your traditional Mega Man. But if you are into the video game comics, just a heads up. But otherwise, Sonic is a very solid read. I've been enjoying it since the beginning. There's, I think, 4 or 5 trade paperbacks out right now. And a great sub, especially if you jump into 31, that should be a jumping on point.
But that does wrap up our comic book highlight of the week. Now we can move into the Brocat block. It's what happened with Daniel and I this week.
Finishing up the top 5 original soundtracks that Bobby had suggested 3 weeks ago, this time we're tackling movies, and this is another category. I think all of these are going to be changing over time as we watch more movies and our tastes change and everything. But I think we're going to go back and forth, just like we've been doing in the past. And I had already talked about it. It was already on my list. So I will go into Tron Legacy. I want an original soundtrack, again, by Daft Punk. I want something that they can release that you can enjoy aside from the movie and outside the movie, something that enhances what's going on the screen. Maybe Tron 3 will be different because of how Legacy performed. Maybe they'll take a whole different spin on it. But I will say that the soundtrack is a reason alone to watch Tron Legacy.
For me, the first one on my list is Moulin Rouge. I haven't seen this in like a million years, but it was one that I did have the soundtrack that I got from Napster downloaded.
Blast from the past.
Downloaded onto my phone. And I used to play it all the time. About every single song in this movie is a mashup of several other songs. So, really something that was fun to sing along to with your friends. We would all sing the different parts from the different characters. And, in my senior year of high school, it was just a lot of fun.
Ichi Gucci La La Taya.
What? I don't know that song.
That's not the one?
Yeah, I do know that
Christina
song.
Aguilera?
That was not the one I had downloaded. Thank you. I did not find that one on Napster.
Next one on my list is actually Rocky.
Da-da-da,
Yes.
da-da-da.
They keep that and all of the fighting music during the final match. They keep bringing that back for all of these newer movies, and they'll reinvent them and tweak them a little bit, and it still has that heavy impact. People listen to that when they work out. They listen to it during any type of sporting event. You'll see it pop up, and it is an iconic song that I think will forever be a staple of the movie industry for movie soundtracks. And it was one of those movies that almost didn't get finished because of the budget. And they had like one take where Sylvester Stallone is talking to Adrian right before the night of the fight, and he is feeling nervous and everything. And much like the actor, where they didn't know if they were going to be able to finish the film, Sylvester ended up getting intoxicated for that scene. And it ended up working out okay. Or maybe they're like, well, we got to shoot it and whatever. Like, that's all we have. But the soundtrack was a huge portion of it. And I think it is definitely iconic.
For sure. I remember every single race that I've ever run, they play Eye of the Tiger somewhere in that while you're running. Like every marathon, every half marathon, you would hear that song, somebody blasting it through their car speakers or whatever. So, yeah.
I still love that part in Rocky 3. And I think it's the only movie that I remember it showing up in was when he's talking to Rocky and he's trying to retrain him and say, you lost your edge because you became champion. You no longer have that hunger. And he brings him to, he's like, we're going to go to my gym. And he takes him, and these are these hyper-focused fighters that are hungry to get better, that do want that they have that, as he says, they have the eye of the tiger, man, and you don't have it. And it's like, oh, there's the name of the song. Like now they have a reason to play the song, right? And I always thought, every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, there's the title of the song.
The next one up on my list is Mulan.
The animated one?
The animated Mulan.
So what are your feelings then on the live action one? Because that probably won't have, I'm assuming, any of the music?
No, it probably won't, but it's a very different movie, and I understand that, and I respect that, right? But the music even, I mean, obviously we all know the songs, right? We can all sing every song. Girl Worth Fighting For, Make a Man Out of You, Reflection was huge when that movie, because then Christina Aguilera sang it, and now let's all sing it, right? So yeah, those songs you really know, and Leo loves this movie, so I listened to the soundtrack on Spotify. See, I've upgraded Napster to Spotify for a while, and any song that came on that played, I could tell you what part of the movie it was. And when you really step back and listen to the soundtrack, you understand how much the music is influencing how you're watching the movie. I mean, you would assume that's with any movie, right? But you can definitely hear the low points and the high points, and even Leo can understand that. You know, as we're watching it and the music gets real low, he's, oh, oh no. So yeah, really, really like the music in Mulan.
Next one on my list is 2001: A Space Odyssey. And this is one that when you hear it, you immediately know it's from 2001. It is a longer movie, but I think a huge part of the fact that the film doesn't feel long is because of the soundtrack. You see movies now that take place in space, and it almost sounds like a 2001 movie. You can see where the influence is always, it's forever has in the future of any movie that deals with space. What was the recent Christopher Nolan one?
I know exactly which one you're talking about, with Matthew McConaughey in the books, and he falls into the black hole,
right,
and becomes a space ghost.
No, it wasn't Arrival, but whatever. I thought it started with an I. Interstellar.
Interstellar, perfect.
So that sounds like 2000, or at least inspired by 2001 a lot, and you can just see where all of that stems from this film. And I don't know if that was inspired by a previous work, but it is one of my favorite soundtracks in film.
I added Joker to my list also, the most recent one. I just felt that I was very invested in the movie, and the music was a large part of that. And this whole music challenge was very difficult for me because while I know that music influences the way that I watch the movie, I don't really pay attention to it as much as, you know, probably you or some other people do it. So I really have to sit down and I'm like, okay, you know, what was I feeling at this time? Can I remember anything from it? And Joker's just one of those movies.
That makes a lot of sense too, because as they were filming a lot of these scenes, this was one where the soundtrack was made first and then they filmed it. And they would actually play some of the music during the filming of the film just to get into the feel of the mood and what they were shooting. And that helped improvise a lot of what Joaquin Phoenix was doing as Arthur Fleck in the film. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. Iconic for sure. On mine, I've got Terminator 2.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun,
yes.
dun, dun, dun.
I know now why you cry. Oh, there's so much, so good. This film, like everything about it is great. And the soundtrack is a massive part of it. I know everyone talks about Arnold and the special effects and the amazing action sequences, but I feel the soundtrack is often overlooked. And that is another one that you will always hear in every Terminator reboot, or hopefully, if they're smart, any reboot or any other sequel, they need to have the iconic Terminator music.
I'm going to say my next one, and then I think our final one is actually on both of our lists.
Sure.
So my next one is Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, it was the only soundtrack that I actually owned the soundtrack on my CD. Thank you.
Not on tape?
No, it was not on. No, it was definitely after that. But I didn't Napster it and I didn't Spotify it. I actually owned it. And I listened to this one a lot too. So I saw this movie a whole lot, but you even think like everybody knows that. Like everybody knows that. And it's another one of those where I can hear the soundtrack at any point and tell you what point of the movie it is. And this is the first Pirates of the Caribbean. Don't give me those sequel nonsenses, just the first one. But just again, that orchestra was just so big and you know, you got the loud booms when it's like the evil zombie pirates and you're just like, oh my God, what's Jack Sparrow gonna do? Anyway, it's great. I love it.
Very good soundtrack. I agree. It's up there for sure. And Bring Me That Horizon. Great ending too.
So great.
Not a bad one. The one that is on both of our lists, and it's our final one in this top 5, not necessarily in any order, by the way, but this is from Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain. And I think he's collaborated with whoever put this together, and I know it's bad. We didn't research any of the names for these soundtracks, but I know a lot of them were probably different composers that worked on the same film as well. But on The Fountain itself, it is my favorite film of all time. It sets the tone for the happy and sad ending to the whole thing. And it kind of goes between, it feels like one long piece of music as you're watching the film. I don't know if you got that same thing, but each scene blends into the next. There's very rarely just silence in it. Yes, his transitioning from the future version, 2,000 years in the future, where he's in the bubble spaceship. And then when he's remembering the past, the music shifts. And when he's in the Aztec period of just Isabel's story, that has its own feel. And every single part of it, even though it's during different time periods, the past, the present, and the future, still meshes extremely well as he weaves the story and as the soundtrack itself continues. What do you have to say on this?
I mean, I can't say it any better than that, right? I just very much remember the da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na. And anytime I hear that, it takes me back to that, you know, emotion and that story and, you know, crying all over again because Hugh Jackman's just going crazy. And so, yeah, definitely you talk about the movie all the time, right? Great movie if you haven't seen it, not just for the storytelling, but for the music as well.
And it builds up near the end with that climax of that resolution within himself. That's when it gets the loudest, I feel, and where we get the most of the soundtrack, which is hinted at throughout the movie, but then it gets into that climax of the song, climax of the movie, and then it finally just tapers off into the white finish of the film. And it's incredible. And I definitely, maybe it is my favorite soundtrack of all time because I could listen to it. The movie itself would not be the same without that soundtrack. So that is for The Fountain. Thanks again, Bobby, for the suggestion on top 5 original soundtracks. Previously, we did anime as well. So make sure to tune in to previous episodes if you hadn't. But otherwise, we're going to close out with the last bit of the Brocat block, which is, you know, what have you been doing this week, Palpa Kelly?
It's been a wild week. Oh man, it's crazy. Yeah, work was like super stressful, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like level 9 stressful this week, which is fine. I got through it, right? And next week is going to be better. And that's just the way you got to look at it, right? Next week will be better. So it definitely will be. Things are looking in a positive direction. Just mainly dealing with that. I was, started up my next classes and I'm super excited. I talked to a counselor this week and they said, nope, you are officially about to graduate. And I was like, oh my God, stop it. And I had like little tears and everything. And so very exciting things happening, for the rest of 2020. And you just take it one day at a time.
Tomorrow is always a new day, a new start. Absolutely. Saturday this past week was one of my roughest days I think I've had in a while. And then it's like, all right, well, Saturday is Saturday. They're my Mondays at work. So it's always when I catch up on everything. And if I'm not in the right headspace, the stuff that happened on Thursday and Friday at the shop that's out of order or that didn't get done right, I get in. The problem magnifies in my head if I'm not in the right headspace. So I wasn't on Saturday and that ended up being kind of a shit show for me work-wise. But then Sunday I was like, all right, new day, right? And then right as I get there, I spilled my giant take home, like I take it to work, giant thing of cold brew coffee that you had made and just spilled it all over the counter, all over the keyboard, all over the mouse, all over the dollar books that are underneath the counter. And it was just like, all right, today's another Saturday. And normally it's like I take that time to count the books, do the inventory, or if I get there a little bit early, I'll relax and just kind of get settled. But instead, I spent a lot of it cleaning up a shit ton of coffee, and I hadn't drank a single bit of it, so there was a lot to clean up. And I ended up, the dollar books, I ended up buying because I damaged them all, and I know it's not something that they make us do, but it's something that I feel like I have to do because it's my responsibility. Or if I forget to ring something up, it rarely happens, but sometimes it does. I'll just pay for it myself. But it was like, all right, so I had to take all those dollar books out. It smelled like coffee all afternoon, and the mouse wouldn't scroll. And I was like, all right, I got to buy a new mouse now. And eventually it all dried, and I used a lot of sanitizer and a lot of alcohol wipes to just get it all coffee smelling. It still has like a slight sticky texture because of the honey in the coffee. Thankfully, days later, the mouse is working normally. The keyboard never really just the underneath got messed up. And now it doesn't smell like coffee anymore. But it was like, that was my Monday and Tuesday of my work week. But it got better. I felt a lot of serenity when we got to Tuesday and Wednesday, like especially Tuesday, I think, because I got normal amounts of sleep. And a lot of that chaos was because Leo kept getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning. You were opening a lot this last week.
Every day.
It was Leo. All right, I got to, grab Leo. And one of the days I brought him into our bed, and I'm like, I got to go back to sleep. And then one of the days that you opened, you brought him into the bed. And that was probably the day where I was like, I got the most sleep because I didn't have to get up, go grab him, take him back, and then get back into like, well, time to try to sleep again.
Right.
So that worked out. The end of my week was much better than the start of it. But I'm excited for DC fandom. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot to be happy about. I still get, and I tweeted it out, some, MCU sheep that are telling me now that we're getting close to the trailer, well, what if Zack Snyder's Justice League sucks?
What if you suck?
You've already decided that you love it. And I still have the same responses that we've said here before. It's not about whether or not this movie is better. It's about these actors and the crew member getting the project that they wanted, getting the thing that they wanted to make and what they actually signed up for. Except now when I answer these things, I've got a happy step to me because we are getting what is now titled Justice League, the Snyder Cut.
You end everything with, but it is better.
It's hard to imagine that it's worse than Justice League, and it very well could be, but I sincerely doubt it. If it's anything like BVS and Man of Steel, it will be better than Justice League, so we'll find out. I'm excited for the trailer. I'm excited to cover that all right here on DC Fandom with Palpa Kelli, and then when we get it next year, hopefully we'll have a variety of guests as we discuss each episode or the full thing once it officially launches. We'll get more details again after DC Fandom. But do you have anything else before we close out today's episode?
No, for those of you looking for Leo news, like Daniel said, he's going through a phase where he is not sleeping. He's waking up 3 or 4 times a night. Especially when I was opening and had to be up at 3:30, he would go to bed at 9 and call me at 10 and call me at 10:30 and then call me again at 1 and call me again at 2:30 and then I'd be up at 3:30. It was great. So, I've heard from a lot of parents, and you brokettes can chime in. It's a phase. Kids do this, and we just got to pull through and do what we have to do for self-preservation, like putting him in our bed.
Right.
And just so that we can get through it, and then you retrain, and then you get him sleeping back in his bed, and then you all just move on with life. But it's really amazing. I feel like he's going through another growth spurt, not just physically, but mentally, where I can see he's thinking about things differently and doing things a little differently and really interacting with other kids and wanting to play and spend time with them. And, it's just really great. Probably the best part of a parent, being a parent is when you get to see them do things. I did put him in big boy underwear yesterday, and he peed all in them, and he's like cowboy walking around like, what? Oh, and I'm just like, yeah, you got to tell me. But I don't think he's to potty training yet. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for potty training.
Ready to save money.
I'm ready for something. So, yeah. So, that's him. Oh, he says no to everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything is bo. Leo, do you want to do this? Bo. Leo, let's go do this. Bo.
And he's now getting picky as well again with his food. We try to switch out the goldfish. I don't think I'm going to buy the regular goldfish anymore. I'll get the healthy ones now, but he'll know the difference between the carrot goldfish and the potato goldfish. And it's not a surprise. I used to do the same thing as a kid, but by default now, I think it's going to have to be kind of like AC, where it's like, no, this is
what
with
you
her.
get.
Yeah, this is what you get. And this is what we're eating. And that's also something I've heard from other parents when they get to an older age of, well, this is dinner. And if you don't want to eat, we're not going to make a special separate meal just for you. So that's how you get them into that, like, they're teens and they only eat chicken nuggets and pizza. And, we're trying not to, we have that opportunity now to not get them at that point.
But our brokettes who have kids, if you have any advice for terrible threes, because we're creeping up on it real fast, we would love to hear it. Throw it my way at Kelli.
So thank you all so much for tuning in this week. I've been Team Rocket Grunt Daniel.
And I am Emperor Kelli.
And Brocat Core. All will be well. What are your thoughts on them calling this not Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I think flows better, and it's just the title, it doesn't matter, but what are your thoughts on them calling it Justice League the Snyder Cut?
I think it's the right move. If you think about it, this entire movement, the entire hashtag was Snyder Cut, right? So while it may flow better with Zack Snyder's Justice League, one, I think that the average people who don't know what's going on might just be like, who's Zack Snyder and why does he have a Justice League?
Gotcha.
Like, that's one of the things by calling it Justice League, you're still pulling people into that. Snyder Cut, they're going to know, okay, it's the same movie, it's just different, right? It's kind of the same. I mean, it's not the same movie, but you get what I'm saying, right? They understand that this has been released before, this is just a different cut. But additionally, it's giving validation, shout out, all that kind of stuff to all of you who have forever been saying release the Snyder Cut, and they're saying, okay, 100%, here's the Snyder Cut. So yeah, they could have changed the name, but I think it kind of undoes, not really undoes, but you get what I'm saying. Like it
there's a huge branding already in place for the Snyder Cut.
Right. It would be a missed opportunity. And so then you're not, when you tweet out, oh, we finally got Zack Snyder's Justice League. No, you're going to say we finally got the Snyder Cut. And there you go. I have chills. Oh my God.
We're finally getting a sequel to BVS.
Yeah, there you go.
How long did it take?
Just forever. Way too long.
Can we change the name of the previous one, the theatrical one, to Justice League? Just so there's no confusion? Because it is literally two different films.
I mean, it is, but the average people are not going to understand that.
When I say it sometimes with customers, and we're talking about it, I'll say Justice League, they kind of give me this look like, why is he saying it like that?
Does it be like, no, it's Justice League, Dan. Do you not know?
You work at a comic shop.
Shame on you.